Hey everybody, and welcome to the D&D podcast. Today I have a story about the time our DM kind of turned our campaign into a lawful evil campaign. Now, it was the first time I had played Waterdeep Dragon Heist as a player, and as you may or may not know about the game, there are many different factions that you can join. They're like groups or organizations. They're not really at odds with each other, but they're very distinct nonetheless. For example, there's the Emerald Enclave for the Druids and the Rangers. There's the Order of the Gauntlet for people who are lawful good, or at least some kind of good. And in Waterdeep, there are also a couple of other guilds, such as the Order of the Gauntlet. Well, I mentioned Order of the Gauntlet, but none are coming to my mind right now, except for this other one that I will go into very shortly. Now, at this point in the game, we already had our bar, we had set up everything, we refurnished the place after it was extremely broken down. It took a long time to get enough money to do that, but we were finally able to. We built a fight pit in the basement, and then one day, the guy I co-owned it with, I believe I mentioned this in another video, but there were 3 of us at the time, and one refused to own it with us, so he worked for us instead of owning it. And so it was just me and one other guy owning it. So one day, there's a knock at the door in the early morning, and he's the only one awake. He goes to answer it, and there's nothing but a letter on the ground. He bends down to pick it up, and as he opens it, the letter is completely blank. He's a little bit confused, so he looks up, and the next thing he sees is a bag over his head. He feels a lot of people restraining him, but he tries to fight for a little bit, but unfortunately, he fails his strength check pretty bad. The next thing he knows, he is tied to a chair in a place he has never been to. It smells awful, and it's very dark, even when the bag is removed from his head. You can't see too much until a giant flying eyeball comes towards him. He does know what this is, and if you don't know, this is what's called a beholder. Now, a beholder is one of the, if not the, most deadly and dangerous creatures in all of D&D. They're basically a floating head with a massive eyeball. Then they have very small tentacles coming out, maybe going a couple of inches. At the end of each tentacle is its own eyeball. Now, each of these eyes are very powerful and have very special abilities. I know off the top of my head that the big eye in the middle, if it's looking at you, no magical items will work. Their other eyes, I know that one is a disintegration, and I think if you fail a Constitution saving throw or a Dexterity saving throw, you're just dead automatically. You're just gone. There's another that can freeze you. There's one that can paralyze you instantly. And there are a couple other that are just as bad. Someone once told me that if a level 20 party is able to defeat a beholder, the DM wasn't running it right. And that kind of intimidated me, especially when my companion was up against this thing tied to a chair, and we were about level 3 at the time, maybe level 4. So he's trying not to be too terrified, and this beholder was a very famous one named Xanathar. Some of you might know that there is a book in 5th edition called Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It's an expansion off 5e. So it's the same Xanathar. and he is basically a crime boss in Waterdeep. So the reason he captured him was basically, he said, "We've seen what you're able to do, and we know that you're not that powerful yet. You can join us, or they'll never find your body." Since he really didn't have much of a choice, he decided to join the Xanathar Guild, which is one of 2 crime syndicates that operate in Waterdeep. I can't remember the name of the other off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it started with a B, and it was very complicated to pronounce. But Xanathar, to my knowledge, was the more prominent one, the stronger one, and it had been there for a lot longer. So, after he agrees to be a part of the Xanathar Guild, Xanathar basically says, "Okay, great. Now, in order for you to be a part of this guild, we need blackmail on you in case you ever need to leave the guild. So go out and kill someone and bring us the body so we can have it as blackmail against you." Now, under normal circumstances, this would probably be a good time to, just not join. But when there's a giant eyeball that can just murder you in 5 different ways just by looking at you, it's usually best to do what it says. So after Xanathar let him go, he gave him, it was 48 hours to kill someone and to bring him the body. Well, actually, he didn't know where Xanathar was, so basically he would leave the body outside the door of the bar. We would set up a signal and they would come get it that night. Anyway, he comes back to the bar and he approaches me because we actually, at the time, the other person that ran the bar that worked for us, I don't remember exactly what he did, but at the time we didn't really trust him. So he comes only to me and tells me what happened. I was chaotic neutral, so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to help you because, you're my good friend, and I don't want you to die, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure you don't. So after this, as you can tell, we're starting to get into a little morally risky territory. Actually, more just probably not morally good territory at all. Because we're basically just decide we're going to kill someone to save someone else, so he can live a life of crime. We actually decide who we're going to kill very quickly, because earlier in the game, there was someone named Rainier Neverember. Now, he was a minor NPC early on, but I really don't remember why, but we absolutely hated him. Maybe it was just the way the DM played him, maybe it was because of other circumstances at the time. I just remember that we hated him. So we decide to invite him over to check out the new bar. He graciously comes because we kind of saved his life earlier. And after he comes over, we give him a drink, we invite him down to the new fight pit, and then this is where the plan gets hatched. I cast the spell Hold Person. He fails pretty bad, so he can no longer move. And my companion just took out his knife, and it was pretty brutal. I won't go into too much detail, but it was described in detail. After the gig was done, we set up the marker, we placed the body where we were supposed to, and the next morning it was gone. Xanathar had accepted him into the guild and sent him a letter basically saying we received the goods, or the good, and you are now officially a member of the guild. That was the time that we went from a fairly chaotic to good campaign straight to evil for one whole session. But that's the end of that story. Let me know what y'all thought. Give me a like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, roll well.